Lauer. I'm the president of the electric company at DTE. Happy to take any questions that you guys have as we go through it. As you know, we've had a really tragic storm that came through and affected Southeast Michigan. We've also had a couple tragedies that have happened with young people coming in contact with wires. It's a really hard day for everybody at DTE. If I say the prayers and thoughts of all 10,000 of our employees and their families go out to the families of the people impacted, that's an understatement. These are the worst days you could possibly have in our business. Our job now is to make sure we keep everybody else safe, and we continue to work on restoring all the customers as quickly as we can. I'd be happy to take any questions.
What's the update on the power situation right now? When can people expect to get power back?
Yeah, the question is, I don't know if anybody can hear you, so I'll repeat it if that works. The question is, what's the status on power restoration? We currently have 260,000 customers without power. Today, all of the resources at DTE, and when I say all of the resources, all of our linemen, most of our engineers, they're all working on public safety. We are marking wires and making sure anywhere where there's a wire down, we are keeping the public safe. It is delaying our restoration. We still expect that 80% of the customers will have their power back by the end of the day on Thursday, and we expect 95% by the end of the day on Friday.
I understand you're marking wires that are down and lines that are down, and until you know they're down, you don't know if there's one that someone can come in contact with. In the Warren situation, neighbors say it was marked at 7 p.m. last night, and it was this morning where kids came in contact with that wire that was only about 4 feet off the ground and right across the street from an elementary school. I'm just curious, why isn't that a higher priority when it's so close to the school?
Yeah, so the question is around prioritization of wire downs. In the case of the Warren one, that was actually marked by a volunteer group that works in Warren, not by DTE. We were not aware of it. Once we were called today for the wire down, we came, we cut the wire, which means we disabled it so that it's no longer having electricity running through it, but it was hanging approximately 4 feet off the ground. From my understanding, it was marked fairly well. Still a very tragic event that happened.
As far as triaging who gets power first, how do you guys go about doing that? Because you're talking about the area.
Yeah, so the question is around prioritization of restoring customers. There's a handful of ways we think about it, but when you have a large-scale event like this, the first thing you do is secure the public, right? Make sure that all wire downs are covered that you can to keep incidents from happening. That will take us quite a bit of today to do that. Then you prioritize healthcare facilities, nursing homes, things where you have gravely ill patients. Then we also have a list of customers that have called into our call center that may be on healthcare equipment or medical equipment they have at their homes. We'll start to restore those. Then we restore what we call substations. If there's a substation that's out, that usually serves somewhere between 5,000 and 10,000 people. So you go to the largest outages so that you're restoring those fast and you start to get the fastest numbers back. That's why when I say 80% back on Thursday, we've got a lot of work today to do, but once we start the full restoration process and we understand the damage, it'll move fairly quickly to start to get big chunks of customers back. Any areas hit worse than others? No. The only area that wasn't really hit was north of I-69. The storm stayed right in the center part of the state as it came across the entire state.
How many crews do you have out?
We have approximately 1,200 crews right now of linemen that work for DTE. Then we have another 1,000 contract crews, and we have about 1,000 engineers and other first responders out working on wire down coverage currently today.
Last year, DTE said that you would spend $70 million additional dollars in tree trimming efforts. Could you talk about what happened in the last year since that promise and what role trees and tree trimming played in the outages today?
Yeah, so it's a great question. It's our commitment last year to spend $70 million on tree trim. We've spent approximately $200 million since last summer on tree trimming alone, plus another $200 to $300 million on strengthening the system. But what you can see behind us here is where a tree came down and it's outside of what we call a utility right-of-way. This was a tree that was on somebody's lot that took down our infrastructure. We can't trim trees that are outside the utility right-of-ways. We generally trim 10 feet to each side of the conductor. That's our utility right-of-way. The vast majority of the outages we're dealing with today are very large trees that broke outside of the utility right-of-way. So what are we seeing with the tree trim infrastructure? It's working really well. In fact, prior to yesterday's event, we were having wonderful reliability for our customers. Unfortunately, we had these straight line winds come through the state and really impacted the entire state of Michigan in a pretty dramatic way.
In terms of repairs, are you seeing many small repairs instead of larger repairs that need to be done in order to get a large number of customers back?
Yeah, we have a process called damage assessment where we send out 500 to 600 people that'll go out and look at all of the outages on the system and try to understand the nature of the damage. So much like what you're seeing here, it's easier for us to give an estimate to a customer if we understand the level of damage. Right now, we've pulled the majority of those damage assessors off of the work that they were doing. We have them working on wire down. So my sense is, based on the level of the wind that we saw, we've got a lot of damage like you're seeing behind us that we're going to have to deal with. But we have excellent crews. They will work their way through this, and we will get the lights back on for everybody.
So back to trees outside of your right-of-way, does DTE have any opportunity or plan or message for addressing those? If there are any that you think pose a problem?
Well, there's two things. If a customer feels like a dead tree on their lot is threatening our wires, they will call us, and oftentimes we will go in and work with that customer. Other times while we're trimming, we will notify customers that there are dead trees on their property. But we do not trim everybody's trees in Southeast Michigan. We really only trim around our utility wires. And where there's dangerous trees, we will take those down when they're noted or if a customer calls us with regards to them. So that's the way I'd answer your question.
Where have you seen the worst damage? Where you have most crews?
In the northwest area of our service territory, there's a lot of damage in the Walled Lake area. The Wixom area's got pretty heavy damage. We've got damage in the city. We've got heavy damage out in the Ann Arbor area. The winds were between 60 and 70 miles for 10 minutes straight. So the damage is pretty consistent across the service territory right now.
More than 3,000 lines down.
Yeah, there were approximately 3,000 wire downs last night, and then this morning, as it turned daylight, we've had about 700 more called in. Now, when I give you that number, many of those will not turn out to be DTE lines, but we cover all cable and phone lines also that tend to sit on our poles, and the public doesn't know the difference. So we encourage anybody in the public, if you think there's a wire down, stay away from it. 20 feet away. Make sure you talk to your children about staying away from wire downs. A good rule of thumb is think about a school bus. Stay as far away from a wire down as a school bus. Call us, send us a text message, and we will come out and take care of it.
How hard is it to wire that are?
I'm sorry,
How hard is it to repair effort? I'm not sure how many of those wires are DTE wires, but how hard is it to repair effort to tackle all those?
It's pretty common when you have tree damage to have wires come down. It doesn't add a complexity to the restoration other than the sheer number of wires that we have down right now. 3,000 is a very large number. Just to have crews show up and actually look at those wires and make sure that we can address those in a way that keeps the public safe. But I expect that all that work will be done later this evening.
Thank you.
How long would you say until, or what is your estimate for a timeline for getting everybody back with power?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think we'll have the vast majority of customers back on Friday. We have approximately 5,000 single customers that are out of power. Our teams are working to secure more linemen or line people to come in from out of state. We've got approximately 1,000 from 5 different states that are joining us today. We'll continue to add resources to help. That tail, or those last 5,000 customers, require a crew just like an outage with 1,000 customers requires a crew. So we have a group today that's already working on each of these single customer outages. They'll be going to each home to understand the level of damage and then what type of restoration crew we need.
Sorry, can you go through the numbers for me again? 5,000 single customers out without power. What about the 260,000?
So there's 265,000 customers that are totally out without power. Of that, there's 5,000 single customers.
I don't know what that means.
Okay. We think about it in terms of outage events. The easiest way to think about it is outage events. An outage event can have one customer or it can have 5,000 customers on it. Depends on the level of damage. What happens with a large scale event is you get a lot of what are just single customer outages. Doesn't affect all of you, it just affects one of you. It's your house and it's nobody else around you. Those tend to be the last restorations that are made because they are one by one that we have to go through. So the more resources you have at the end of the storm and the better you understand the damage, the faster we can restore those single customer outages.
Does that mean there's 260,000 homes and businesses without power right now, or 5,000?
It means there are 265,000 homes and businesses that are without power, but they are made up of 4,000 outage events. So I'll give you an example. If you look behind you, this is an outage event. Approximately 1,400 customers are affected in this outage. Once we repair this outage event, 1,400 customers will get their power back
Thank you.
by 4:30.
What's the most important message? What do you want to let folks at home that probably watching this on their phones don't have power? What do you want to say to everybody?
Yeah, the single most important message right now is about public safety and staying away from wire down. We have a lot of wires down. It is a dangerous situation for the public. We'd ask everybody, stay inside, keep your pets inside, give us a few more hours to clean all of this up. The last thing we want is another repeat of what happened in Warren or down in Monroe. We will get all the wires secure, but we need a little bit more time to do it. So public safety is the single most important message.
Thank you.
I got one more. I know DTE is pursuing a rate increase right now. What do you say to customers who are experiencing an outage and also possibly facing higher bills at the same time?
Yeah, there's three things you do to stop outages from happening, right? The first thing you do is you trim trees. That's not going to do all of it. The second thing is you come back, harden your existing infrastructure. And then the third thing is you opportunistically build new infrastructure. Well, all of that requires us to continue to invest inside of the electric grid. The cost of not having power far exceeds the small increase that we'll have. Our bills are below the national average, and I recognize that hardships come in many different ways for our customers, and we're doing everything we can to keep our bills affordable, but we are below the national average at DTE, and it's something that we take a lot of pride in.